We are honored to have Alec Miller from Esri, the global leader in geographic information system, GIS software, location, and intelligence mapping, used by organizations to build sustainable world. Alec is president and the founders of Esri Canada, which has been a long-standing partners of Trans-Canada Trail. Today, Alec will be sharing how digital twins are connecting people to trail, from local to global, which is particularly relevant for us as we look to engage more community in managing our trail sustainability. Please join me in welcoming Alec Miller.
Thank you, Bishop. Well, good afternoon. I hope everyone's enjoying their lunch. How many of you, before we get started, how many of you have heard of digital twins before you saw this abstract? So there's a few. And how many of you have heard of it and know what it is? Join all the other people. It's generally whatever you want it to be. So digital twin was a term invented by General Electric many years ago to build a complete 100% digital version of a jet engine and test it to destruction without having to put it in a plane and fly up in the air and crash the plane. So it was a huge advance. And the idea started to move into the building industry so that you could actually model buildings, and the auto industry started using it. And now today, digital twins are the standard for almost everything. Tesla pioneered going straight to manufacturing without ever building a prototype. So, but the term has been picked up through architecture and planning to have a slightly different meaning, which is it's an abstraction, not a pure twin. It's like sibling, so that you can actually do planning on the digital version. So today, digital twins are being widely used in planning, and we think of it as it's a different term for a geographic information system. So a GIS lets you make maps. It lets you look at the whole globe with a set of abstractions. It lets you go down to an individual property. And today, this shorthand for the digital twin is very useful metaphor to think about two kinds of twins. And we'll talk about this today. One is the twin of something physical, the infrastructure, the trail itself, all the bridges that are on it, the paths that are on it, and everything else, but also think of it as something that only exists in the mind of people who are using it, which is an actual coast-to-coast-to-coast trail. If all of us forgot about the trail, it wouldn't exist. And so the connection of the people to each other in the trail is what makes the trail the trail. Otherwise, it would just be a bunch of physical things. So bringing these two twins together, if you will, or building these twins is what I'm going to talk about today. So we're not going to use PowerPoint today. We're actually going to be using something called story map briefing. How many of you have heard of Esri's story maps here? So many of you have used story maps. So this is a story map briefing, which looks a little like a PowerPoint, but you can actually step through it and constantly, and you can bring up other story maps. So that's the introduction of what a digital twin is. But this is really about connecting people to the actual physical, the digital twin of the physical world and the network of people and communities. So a little bit about my background. I'm an engineer by profession. I'm a surveying engineer. And I started my career with the Ontario Department of Highways as a surveyor, and ended up spending my first 12 years of my career all over the world. I was in Ontario with the Department of Highways, and I ended up going to northern Nigeria in the 74, and I was there for almost a year, lived there, and had never been properly explored by the settlers. So it was Muslim territory, and they were governing it quite well. And so the Canadian government funded the Northeast Nigeria Mapping Project and all the surveys and all the control that were needed. The next year, I spent most of the year in Algeria doing a 1,000-mile pipeline route location. And that's a picture of me at a French Foreign Legion French geodetic station, getting ready to tie the line itself to lat and long. And then later in 1980, I was 6 months in Oman, also working on a pipeline project. What makes this map kind of interesting here is we go back to Algeria, and we can see it looks like a map of the world, but in fact, if we zoom in there tight around where I am, you'll actually see that this is part of the global Esri community base map. And as we look around, you can see how wild the terrain is, but you can go from anywhere in the world to deeper and deeper and deeper. We won't go any further in here, but you can see the level of detail gets better and better as you go down. And we'll talk a little bit about how that happens in a different paradigm of making maps. Because everything is getting digitized now, about 20 years ago, one of my brothers got free access to Ancestor.com, Ancestor.ca, and he found the ship's manifest and the captain's log of the ship that brought our family to Canada. And it had the names and ages of everybody. So I built a story map. We're not going to go look at that, but if you want to look at Joseph Miller's story map, you'll find their voyage from, it's amazing. The captain's talking about the mast falling off. Our family lore was always that everybody was in these huge storms and they were all sick, and they were 6 weeks on the ship. But then when they got into New York, we still don't know how they got from New York to Toronto, but we do know that they left Toronto and went up to Creemore, and at one point they had to take the wheels off the ox cart because the bush was too thick to get through. So this wasn't that long ago, really. So why don't we move on to the next slide? And so all these documents that are being digitized of the past and of the present have been going on for thousands of years, where people made cave drawings, that was the art, but before writing evolved and before clay tablets, people used things to make maps. How do I get here from there? Where are the trails? It's probably, and they don't survive because they were birch bark or they were a piece of charcoal on something. But this is one from the Ojibwe, a relatively recent one, because you can see it actually has some of the writing that they adapted. But when the settlers came, they started using paper maps and getting that indigenous knowledge and creating maps that they weren't very accurate, but they were more and more starting to look like what we would think of as a map today. And today, people are using satellite imagery, computers. This is an award-winning map by the Cree Nation government that was created in 2023, and it's a digital map. And you can see all the detail on that map, and you can see the topography, you can see the ground cover, you can see all kinds of things. And that is sort of the beginnings of their long-term digital twin, of how they will make decisions on Charlton Island and how they will steward that island. So if we move now to another example of a story, this is an example of a story map. This is Paul Salopek. He's a journalist and a National Geographic explorer, and he set out to travel 24,000 miles across the route that humanity took coming from Africa, where we think that the first humans emerged, and that's why it's called Out of Eden. And he walked the entire thing. And along the way, if you just hover over, you can see as you hover over and you touch one of these, you can see. So he made recordings of the voices of the local people. He took lots of photographs. Every one of these, I think, has a photograph of his shoes because he ran through an awful lot of shoes over time. And he made videos and all kinds of different things. And this is incredible when you go through this and see the diversity of people and the amount of time he spent out on all these different trails. If we go over to one here on Cyprus and we zoom into Cyprus, I was doing this, I thought, oh, I didn't realize they would have gone to Cyprus. And as you zoom in here, will you see something funny about this map? Anybody spot it? What are those borders? There's two borders. There's the Turkish border and there's the Greek border. And so this is because it's a community map. It's built by the communities. And the communities there have not agreed on a boundary. And we've seen this in Canada. Mount Pearl and St. John's in Newfoundland can't agree on the boundary between the two cities. And so we ended up putting both of them on the community map. So, so this is a look at how story maps can be used to tell stories. And the more you digitize of the information as you go along, the more you're able to share your experiences with others. Also have others come and join you on your own journey. So the next thing we're going to look at here is the Trans-Canada Trail itself. So this is the Trans-Canada Trail Explore the Trail app that you see when you go onto the map. So in 1992, we were asked by the original Trans-Canada Trail founders and board if we would donate our software to help them plan the trail. It was, those of you who are longtime GIS people, it was ArcInfo. And this resulted in them choosing where the trail would go. And they re-engaged us in 2007 when the 10-year plan to develop to finish the trail was conceived. And we agreed to donate more software, more time, and in particular, we joined into a partnership around developing community, and it was called the Community Map of Canada. And we had a meeting of government officials from across Canada at the Kingbridge Centre in Ontario. Some of you from outside the country won't know what that is, but it was a center where everybody got together and we said, you know, why don't we just think about turning the mapping paradigm upside down? Instead of starting top down and making more and more detailed maps, why don't we start with the actual GPS and the coordinates and the building plans and the site plans and everything else, and try to curate that into a map which we then summarize and summarize and summarize as we go up. And we've now, 15 years later, more than 15 years later, we now have 500 organizations providing this data every night. Some nights we process over 3 million changes, and we publish it twice a week. So a brand new map twice a week. So the trail is benefiting tremendously from that, but they are also adding all this other detail. Where do I park? Where can I find places to get coffee? Where can I get my bike repaired? So this is not just in big cities like Ottawa here. If we go all the way out to the very most northern part of the trail, to Tuktoyaktuk, and we go in and say, well, what does Tuktoyaktuk's map look like? And when we started this process, it basically had a white line around the outside, which was a shoreline, and now it has all the detail of their community. It's got their community centers, it's got their schools, it's got all the detail, it's got their parcel boundaries that those are maintained by the federal government. But this is spreading across the whole country. And it's now being stimulated and pushed forward by the government's regulation that the Next Gen 911. 911 is our emergency calling system. Most of you have it. You pick up the phone and you call 911. Today, because all phones are mobile and they don't get access to the GPS coordinates, the first question is, where are you? And I don't know, I'm in the Starbucks. Well, like, which Starbucks? Oh, in the mall. And panic ensues. So there's legislation went through here a number of years ago and a program to switch everything from phone numbers to IP addresses. This is North American right now, but it's going around the world, and it will deliver the IP address and the GPS coordinates, and you'll be dispatched immediately. So our company is working with all the telcos and these municipalities to improve that, but it's also going to phenomenally improve the ability of local communities to actually get the skills and the expertise and the knowledge to maintain their own data in their community and then share that. So other organizations are taking advantage of this shared community map, like Parks Canada, and they've got these webcams out in the park. So if you can look at any one of these, and it's their wildlife cameras. So you can see all kinds of different wildlife, and the one must have wondered what the heck it was because you're looking right at it. These sensors, these are cameras, of course, and these sensors are popping up all over the world, not just out in the wild, but in sensors. There are ways for us to start understanding what's happening in the world. Isn't that pretty funny? Just amazing. Yeah, just absolutely amazing. And this is a beautiful story map because it actually tells you about the actual species and what their habitat is and all kinds of interesting stuff. So if we move on to that, the other big thing that's happening right now is an explosion of drone technology, and it's being accelerated really rapidly by the Ukraine-Russian war. The AI algorithms are just getting to be unbelievable. So here's someone out somewhere along the trail in the wild with the drone up in the sky, and they're producing this little image here. But if you look over, this is along the Alaska Highway going through northern BC. And you can see what the result of this is. This is probably aerial photography, not drone photography, but there's a little company in BC called Spexy, which is offering $6 for people with a DJI Mini, like a drone under 250 grams, to fly one of these bins. They're called Uber bins. It's how Uber divides the world up. And it takes 8 minutes, and you download the software, send your drone up, it makes maps, and it's 1.25 inch, so 2.8 centimeter resolution. And they covered, during Kamloops fire, where it actually destroyed one of Trans-Canada Trail's bridges, I think, during that big fire, they couldn't get aerial photography or satellite imagery to see, so they opened it up to SPECSI. They got the entire Kamloops Regional District done in 48 hours. So, and they're able to repeat this over and over. So we're going to see much, much, much more sophisticated digital twins as this whole drone technology appears. So back in 2020, when we were all locked down in COVID, and we were working with the Trans-Canada Trail, lots of our people were working on events with them, we decided we got to get people out and have something that will keep us connected together. How do we connect remote people together? So we came up with this idea of something called the Trans-Canada Trail Challenge. So our staffers said, okay, you can't go to the Trans-Canada Trail unless you live close to it, but you can go to a local park. You can bike, hike, walk, and record your time, track it with your little GPS, and then upload it through a mobile app, Survey123, to this app that we built, which then conflated the distance that you traveled onto the Trans-Canada Trail. And we had a leaderboard. I'm sitting in there somewhere with only 35 uploads. I guess I got lazy on doing the uploads, but one person has 2,500 the trips that he made. So then we had, in addition to that, we had, what else do we have, Guan? So I should mention Guan Yi, one of my colleagues, is back here driving the mouse along. So she's, so this one now is there's the teams that we put together, and it says 0 days remaining because the contest is over. And the last one is an image of one of the teams going out biking and putting their photo up. There's lots of things that you could put up. So this is a tremendous use of the trail itself. So just to come back from where we started here, in 2019, I was at a meeting in Dublin, and I took the opportunity to actually go to where the Miller family came from in Monaghan. And I discovered before I went there that there was a survey called Griffith's Survey. It was a valuation of all property in Ireland around the time of the potato famine. And the Ordnance Survey had taken and figured out how to rubber sheet those to satellite maps, and there it was. So I downloaded, and I can click, this is a live map, I click on lot 4A and lot 4B is where they came from. And they left there in February of 1852 to take that voyage over. And there's a picture of the house. I actually visited the house in 2019, knocked on the door, and the woman who answered the door's name was Elaine Stewart. And my great-great-grandmother's name was Mary Ann Stewart. And she is a direct descendant, still living in the same house. So it was an amazing experience. And I hiked all around, being up on the property it was really quite a moving experience, realizing that I was back there, 60 years after the family had left. So you have the opportunity now to get your name on this global map, this global community map, and your pictures. So you can see there's a lot. We brought this up with just some test data, but some of you are going to our booth and uploading and recording it. You can do it with the mobile app too. You can just go to the QR code there and start showing us where your favorite trails are and your favorite places on your favorite trails around the world. And all of you will be able to look at this app, and we'll just leave it up in perpetuity. It'll be part of that, piece of data that somebody will find 172 years from now, archived on the digital twin of the world. Thank you.